to the neighborhood and the community continue to grow. Hopefully those missions become aligned and we'll be able to sustain a deeper integration of art and design resources into our community. So that's what sustainability means to us over here on the Near East Side. Thank you for letting me start.
I'll go if that's okay.
Yeah,
Next.
please do.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ash Kilgankar. My wife, Hadrian, and I are the owners of the Hot Room Yoga Studios. We have a few locations in Indianapolis. And what started out for us in terms of teaching yoga, which was maybe the first few years that we did, has really actually developed into our new mission and our vision over the last 4 or 5 years is to build communities. And that is that the genesis of that was from our mission, where we want to have make sure that everybody, so 1 word and 2 words, are able to come together and do yoga. And what we do is we build communities. That's our new mission, but we happen to kind of do it through yoga, right? And it's been a really great example for us that we can do this at a community setting and really, go to that point where everybody does know your name, right? You're coming to class, and when you don't come to class, someone's going to call you, and it won't be me, but they'll be like, "Why weren't you there? What's going on?" And it's more that accountability is not about doing exercise. It's about accountability of being there. And it's about building that community and sharing if there's any other way that you may need help and you may need to talk to somebody. And so that building that community at the grassroots level, happening in a very organic way is what sustainability means to us. Yeah, we want to be able to take that community concept and really go into different areas to bring people together. It really helps dispel a lot of myths. It lets you sort of see people in their rawest form. We're all up there sweating and we're all just kind of, moving forward and doing these postures, but at the same time, we are doing it together. And that's really cool. And that's what sustainability is, as we continue to keep doing that across different avenues that we're permitted to open our studios in.
Thank you so much for sharing. Domini, do you want to share with us?
Yeah, hi, my name is Domini Urban. In addition to enjoying Ash's class with Hadrian at the Hot Room, I think I've taken I took a couple hundred before my pregnancy, actually, and they told me I couldn't go, the maternal fetal medicine folks. But I love the community, big fan. Always brought my coworkers, really great time if you haven't been. But I am the founder of Bloom Relocation Technologies, and I'm developing a startup to help making moves easier. So designing software to kind of automate and basically really automate the moving process. And not just like the boxes, but the actual like the reminders and taking the burden off of usually one person who's trying to coordinate all the things. So really project management software for moving. And I started that because I have worked in economic development for most of my career, so talent attraction and retention. And so for me, I think of sustainability in a community through economic development. So literally, like, how do we sustain businesses large and small and help them be their best selves? Do we have the talent for those folks? Do we have the schools? Do we have the resources to help that community, thrive and flourish with the businesses that are there, with the people that are there, and looking at social equity and justice, and how do we make sure that folks can stay in their communities, grow in their communities, flourish in their communities. And so that's how I think of community, literally as how do we sustain a great community, how do we develop it, and how do we keep it moving forward.
So well said by all of you. I love hearing what sustainability can look like for people with different perspectives and different positions. You all are owners or founders of different entities, which I think is amazing. And so I am wondering, how do locally owned businesses contribute to organic growth in communities? Anyone can start.
I think the first part of that, as you said, locally owned businesses and to be local in that community. And so we do a lot to make sure that as much as we can, we access other local businesses, other entrepreneurs, other tradespeople, et cetera, to make sure that they are involved in a collaboration So it's not just a, hey, come do this so I can succeed. Let's do this so we can succeed. And so I think that there is that component of local support that is so necessary. So whenever we need something, the first thing we do is there anybody in our client base who can help us? Is there anybody who we can support in that process, and then we can highlight in today's culture where there's so much opportunity that comes with sort of just tagging somebody else along with you. It's going to help them so much. We try to do that as much as possible, and making sure that where charity begins at home, we talk about that. It begins in the community, because the community is our home. So that's kind of the one thing that we can definitely say to help others in through that process.
I think of an old proverb. It's, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And for me, I think of that as sustainability with small businesses and of businesses of any size, really. But when you reach into your community, you're able to pull folks along, just like Ash said, and go together. And frankly, you can go together faster. It is easier and helps provide for the growth of a community when you do things together. I joke, like, my hometown is Fort Wayne, and Northeast Indiana is home to like the most medical device companies, like in Warsaw. And part of it is because the knowledge base is there, the folks are there, people keep doing spinoffs and starting new companies and working together. And so I think that togetherness has provided a ton of wealth for that community and a ton of opportunity for that community. And I also think that opportunity begets other opportunity. And so by using the community around you, you can develop those skill sets that you need. You can help, I think, of and talent attraction and retention. If you're able to grow that talent there, for your companies to be able to grow and do better and go farther faster, everyone's better off.
If you've never had the opportunity to go to Warsaw, Indiana, definitely do that. The sign will welcome you as the capital of the orthopedic, I believe, capital of the world. But I think that's an important point. Reflection is very important. I believe that your community should be embodied in the type of businesses that are there. On the near East Side, we've developed a quality of life plan that tries to put arts at the center of what we do. And we want to be able to continue to attract cultures that are ethnically different, that have a different ability in terms of socioeconomic status. We want to be able to touch as many different types of our community as possible. So we want to make sure our business is not only local, but it's accessible. And we're continuing to try to create growing positive experiences that are creating those net promoters, right? So if I give you a great experience, you go and tell 10 other people, and then now all of a sudden, all the people who want to come see art in Indianapolis, they're coming to the East Side because of the plans that we're developing. So thinking specifically about how our businesses are staying local, but also are a reflection outward of the neighborhoods and the communities that we're a part of.
That is amazing. And I also love how community-based organizations are working to make those plans for their own communities. I think that's so important. And I feel that you each do that as well in contributing to the business owner group in Indianapolis. It's growing, and it's just been amazing to see. So with that in mind, how do you think community development looks with sustainability at the forefront of those plans?
I can continue to talk a little bit more about the Near East Side quality of life plan. One of the things is that we started with a vision, right? And that vision, I think, needs to initially identify stakeholders and then kind of point out what their unique value or contribution can be. Like, what is their bandwidth? So thinking about the John Bonner Neighborhood Center, they offer a ton of different services for our area, but they're now starting to create more cultural experiences, right? Ones that are available to the people who currently live here, as well as I mentioned earlier, the people who are starting to come into the neighborhood. They're at the forefront of development, right? They're trying to ensure that there's going to be affordable housing long term. So really having that vision at the beginning and then setting that North Star so that every time you make a decision going forward, you're always guided and directed by that vision. And it helps you stay true to your to your early tenants. So I think having that plan early on and then sticking to it will allow you to create a certain level of sustainability as well.
I'll go if it's okay. I think that I totally agree with Chris. I think having the plan in place as well. I think for us also, it's been a measurement of that plan to see how well we are doing toward that end, and also how current is that plan? Because one of the things that happens, as we've seen in this last year, 2 years, so many changes. You know, it's time. It forced us to go back to see how do we adjust and how do we do this, and really brought forward a conversation about you know, how we address where it is that the practice of yoga is going. Is it only for a certain type of person? Is it accessible for everybody? How do we make sure that everybody, just because we say everybody is welcome, how do we make sure they do really feel welcome? A lot of times it is going out in the community and understanding why it is that somebody may not feel comfortable coming in and what type of representation we have. So when you talk about community development, continued community development, I think now, even as compared to 3 months ago, or definitely more than last year, the conversation on diversity and inclusion becomes so much more a part of it, because that community, if you're really truly reflective of the community, it needs to be a broader conversation than just what your business model maybe started out as. And so you know, I grew up on the East Coast where I took things for granted from a diversity perspective that when I came to Indianapolis weren't very true. And that was a very interesting learning for me. But I think that given that, and again, the current events of what's happening now, it's an opportunity for us to kind of remeasure the original plan and goals and to readjust them to be more reflective of the current times.
I have to agree with both of you. One of the things that I thought of was staying true to what the values are, and I think understanding what your constituents and what your residents and what everyone really needs and letting them be authentic about it helps guide the value and guide the mission, and shows you where you have opportunities to pivot, and shows the community where they can kind of where they should be going and how they can get there together. Yeah, one of the things I remember in community development is that it's easy to have mission creep, right? You can say, oh, we're going to start here, and then like something changed. But if you stay with those values, then even if things change, you can kind of stay on target. And I think that that's more important than ever. And Ash, I definitely agree. Making sure that you reach out to people who aren't necessarily in your immediate circle to figure out how you can best serve others. That helps keep relevancy going. And I think that's fantastic.
I could not agree more with each of you. I feel like what Domini said in that first question about going together, you go further. And Ash, when you said about making people feel welcome, it reminds me of the saying, everyone can have a seat at the table, but does everyone feel welcome at the table? And so I think it's amazing that as you build communities and you want to make sure that everyone feels like they are continuing to be part of that vision and that future, that we go out of our way to make sure that they know that they're part of that future and vision. So I know we're all in Indianapolis on our panel, and so I'm hoping you might have some ideas here. As we're a rapidly growing city, how do you think that cities who are growing as quickly or wanting to grow quickly can maintain meaningful growth for both the people currently living there while also attracting new residents and new jobs and new companies?
I'm going to go first on that one because this one's my normal wheelhouse as far as like my work at the Indy Chamber and the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership. When we talk about talent attraction and retention, a big part of the reason people choose to live places is community, right? So having a strong community and having strong neighborhoods, amenities, services, infrastructure, those are all very important to both maintain the residents that you have, and also attract that new talent to the area. And so, I would have big companies say, hey, like, where are my potential employees going to like get schooling? Like, where will they go eat? Where will they go to the yoga studio? Can they find, like parks programming? Are there trails? Like the questions, as far as internet, like the infrastructure most is there, but the community is what drives people, like where they want to live and where they choose to, put themselves, and more than ever. And so it's really important to have that sense of community and to make it sustainable as time goes on. And that's what really attracts folks to a place.
I can follow up. Having an art gallery and having an art mission can be challenging in an area that's not specifically known for art. And I think the near east side of Indy is more so known for transition than anything. But in terms of thinking about how we satisfy our neighbors who currently live here, as well as continue to make the area attractive to people who are moving from, say, Chicago or Ohio or Tennessee, different parts of the country, is really, again, going back to the values that we set forth at the beginning, and knowing that our goal is to try to attract opportunity, resources, and sustain those for future generations. I think that Indianapolis is known for its maybe not necessarily diversity, but its culture, and trying to embrace the current culture as well as continue to encourage others to contribute to that culture. And I think by having an openness and willingness to work together, it will undoubtedly attract new artists, attract new resources, and more stakeholders that can help us deliver on our mission to bring art and culture to the rest of the city.
I agree with both of those points that were made, both of you made. I think one of the things I want to bring in when I first moved to Indianapolis from the East Coast, somebody told me that Indianapolis is a great place to bring up children, to raise children, but it's a really horrible place to raise adults. And I keep that in my mind as a mantra to say, okay, well, how can I now, as a business owner, as a local business owner, contribute to making sure it is a great place to bring up adults, And so I thought about what I took for granted, living in New York, was the fact that, yes, I had my, ability to go to any of the ethnic stores that I wanted to from a food perspective, or access arts and access all these other opportunities that when I first came to Indianapolis felt like a void. And if we think about how to maintain that growth, is to make that possible, is to create that path so that others can come in as well, to say, oh, I can totally do that. I can exist there. I can bring in this other thing that's going to help me to do, a certain type of an art form or what have you. And that's what's going to keep people there. I see a lot of times when we have people, and it's called that, I think they call it a drain, some kind of brain drain or something like that, where people get educated here and they go to a different part of the country. I always say, well, now you should stay here. We trained you, you need to stay here and help this community to do better. And so it is a slow process, but I think that we're already doing it. Just, the panelists here are great examples of people who've done such amazing things to create that opportunity for people to say, you know what, I can get what I want right here. In fact, it's actually better. And so that's kind of where I would say from a maintenance perspective, we're still on that path. And I'm really excited to be on that path, to create those paths for other people to come in and learn and engage and then stay.
Well, you started to answer that last question I had with how can your organization and company work to create sustainable growth for the city? But if you have more to share on it, I'd love to hear it. And then as well as Domini and Chris, if you both have any experience and input you can add to that, love to hear it. And then after this question, we're going to be opening it up for Q&A. So if you have questions, be sure to put those into the chat box as we'll start answering those after this one.
Sorry about that. I think I had the mute monster caught me by the ankle there. But to build on that last question, I think Ash had a great point. You have to be the change that you want to see. And I think especially if I take myself out of, person wanting to bring art to an area and put myself in the shoes of what would attract me to bring art to this area, I have to just be the best example of what it means to have in our gallery. I'll give you an example. The building that we operate in was not in our gallery before. And I remember the first time we were able to hang the lights in the ceiling and see the lights come on. It was really a certain level of surprise and delight where it started to feel like exactly what we wanted to be. And while we have many steps to go, I think that if this place does not continue to exist for me as an art space, it will invite and make others who want to have that space feel welcome, right? So really setting forth, I really think about being able to set forth a path for others to follow, but also giving people the ability to blaze their own path.
I think we have a bias towards, we joke about a bias towards neighborliness. And that's something that's really important in order to prevent that brain drain, is that people, it's kind of like if you like something, tell other people. If you don't like it, tell us first. But you want to make sure that people are able to see themselves, following their dreams and passions here. And the willingness to help others, I think, is a big asset that we have as a city. Like, if you say, hey, I'd like to meet this kind of person, or I'd like to learn more about this, chances are you're within, a degree or two separation away from that. And people are usually willing to connect to you. And that's really important when you're talking about the brain drain, helping people develop new opportunities for themselves and their families, so they can see themselves here in the long term. So I think sustainably, we do need to think about, hey, how do we better help people access the kind of opportunities they're looking for, and use our bias towards neighborliness to help accelerate opportunity here.
Just to close it off, I think that word that you used, neighborliness, is such an amazing word. I'm so glad that you used it, because I think that encompasses a lot of what we should be doing. Another term I've been hearing recently is, how to citizen, as a verb. And that the way that you citizen is that you take care of your community. If you are a citizen of Indianapolis, if you're a citizen of this community, you watch out and you make sure that things are, cleaned up. Chris talked about, from an Earth Day perspective, but I think that what we need to also take that broader is that we are all sort of taken care of, and we are all in a position that we can see what those things are and really build a tight community. So I appreciate that word neighborliness a lot. So thank you.
Thank you all so much for answering those questions. One of our questions from the Q&A comes from Danny Kane, and they're asking, Ash, do you have any ideas on ways Indy can better raise adults? This is such an interesting observation. And then Domini, you also touched on the brain drain that is happening. So how can we help keep adults here?
I think that if you see like the proliferation of downtown right now, again, it's a community-wide problem. I think it's not just one thing, but there's so many other things that adults need to be able to grow, from a stimulation perspective. The arts are just one piece of it, and the cultural differences that we are now sort of starting to see a lot more of in Indianapolis are some things that are going to keep us in raising adults. A lot of times, as from my ethnicity perspective, whatever I would need something, I would have to fly home, or my mom would mail me something. Now, if you look around, there's so many other options that are available. And how do we foster that? How do we care for that? How do we make sure that that community feels welcomed and celebrated? As a part of it. And that applies, I use that one example to say all the other things that are here as well. So I think that we're still on that road, but I think that every opportunity you get to support, may it be a small business, may it be a small community, the growing community, I think we need to take advantage of it, show up at those events, support those people, and try things out, and be able to say, hey, I went there and it was actually pretty cool. Or if it even if you didn't like it, then that's fine, but at least you tried it and you were there and you gave it an opportunity. Just because you're in a cultural plethora doesn't mean you have to like everything. It just means that you have to make sure that it's available. So
Thank you so much for sharing on that. And again, thank you so much, Chris, Domini, and Ash, for joining us on this conversation on sustainable community development today. I'm so appreciative. Thank you to Indy Design Week for allowing More Magazine to present this panel. Again, if you'd like to learn about More Magazine and our recent second issue launch, head to www.moremagazine.org. And thank you all. Enjoy the rest of Indy Design Week.